My little girl's head was bare, her soft hair stripped away, as if someone had stolen part of her childhood. She sat trembling in the corner, clutching a cap that looked far too big for her, while her own mother chuckled like it was some kind of joke. In that instant, my chest tightened with rage and disbelief. No father should ever have to witness his child humiliated this way, especially in front of family. This story is mine, and I ask you to stay with me and support this channel for more. It happened on the night of my 58th birthday. I should have remembered that day as one of joy, a house filled with voices, the smell of roasted chicken drifting through the kitchen, and laughter bouncing off the walls. But instead, I can only remember one image that cut through me like glass. My little girl, Emma, sitting in the corner with her head lowered, hiding beneath a cap too big for her tiny face. The moment I walked through the door, I felt something was wrong. My instincts told me before my eyes did. Something inside me whispered that I was about to witness a scene no father should ever face. I had been working late the night before, and I promised Emma that I'd make up for it by bringing her favorite cake to the party, chocolate with strawberries. She had always asked for that. I carried it into the living room, expecting the same old rush of little feet running toward me, her arms thrown around my waist, her voice calling out, "Daddy!" But there was no rush this time. Instead, I saw her curled up against the sofa, her shoulders trembling. She didn't look at me. She didn't even move until I came closer. I crouched down, setting the cake on the coffee table, and gently touched her arm. "Emma, sweetheart, what's wrong?" She lifted her face slowly, and that was when I saw the tears welling in her eyes. She whispered in a voice so fragile it nearly broke me in half, "Daddy, I can't take off my hat. Mommy says I'm ugly without it." My heart stopped. My hands shook as I reached for the cap. Carefully, almost praying I was wrong, I lifted it away. And there it was, the cruel truth staring at me. My daughter's head had been shaved down to the scalp, her skin raw and uneven, as if it had been hacked at without care. The air was sucked out of my lungs. For a moment, the noise of the party faded. I couldn't hear the clinking glasses or the laughter in the kitchen anymore. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart and the sound of Emma's shaky breath. I wanted to scream, to demand who had done this, but deep down, I already knew. When Emma's little hands shot up to cover her bare scalp, shame glowing in her cheeks, she whispered through trembling lips, "Mommy did it." I froze, my mind spinning. Just then, my wife Clara appeared in the doorway with a glass of wine in her hand, her smile careless, almost smug. "Oh, so you've seen Emma's new haircut?" She laughed. "Isn't it modern? Kids in school wear their hair short now. It's the style." My throat tightened with rage. "Modern?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Clara, how could you do this to her? She's only 6 years old." Clara shrugged, sipping her wine as though we were arguing about curtains. "It was necessary. She never wants to wash her hair, always cries when I try to comb it. I decided to solve the problem once and for all." Emma pressed herself against me, trembling like a frightened bird, her tiny fingers digging into my shirt as though I were her shield. My mind was boiling, my blood turning to fire. I couldn't comprehend how any mother could look at her child's tears and laugh. I wanted to protect Emma, to take her away immediately, but the room was full of relatives who were clapping, chatting, drinking, pretending not to notice the storm brewing in front of them. That indifference cut me as much as Clara's cruelty. I called out for my older son, Daniel, who was in the kitchen pouring drinks. He came over reluctantly, his expression uneasy. "Dad, what's going on?" I pointed at Emma's shaved head, fury quaking in my voice. "Did you know about this? Did you let your mother do this to her?" He avoided my eyes, muttering, "She said it was for the best. Emma's hair was always tangled. It's just hair, Dad. It'll grow back. Just hair." Those words stabbed into me like a blade. For him, for Clara, it was just hair. But for my little girl, it was more than that. It was her pride, her crown, her sense of self ripped away by the very person meant to protect her. Emma's tears slid down her cheeks silently, her lips quivering as she whispered to me, "Daddy, am I ugly now?" The words shattered my chest. I cupped her small face in my hands and whispered back with every ounce of love in me, "No, baby, you are the most beautiful girl in the world. With or without hair, nothing changes that." But her eyes didn't believe me. They were still clouded with doubt, the kind no child should carry. Clara, meanwhile, rolled her eyes, her tone dripping with mockery. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's hair. It'll grow back. She's being dramatic." That word dramatic burned in my ears. I turned toward her, my voice low and trembling with anger. "You call this a joke? You call humiliating your daughter in front of everyone discipline?" Clara smirked. "In my family, kids obeyed. They didn't throw tantrums. Emma needs discipline, not coddling." Her words hit me like poison. Discipline. Was that what she called this? Was this her idea of teaching? By breaking our daughter down until she was too scared to fight back. At that moment, the weight of every small detail I had ignored came crashing down on me. Emma had grown quieter in recent months. She no longer sang while playing with her dolls. She no longer begged me to read her favorite story twice before bed. Instead, she had become timid, hesitant, as though always expecting punishment for the smallest mistake. I had noticed it, yes, but I had dismissed it as part of growing up. Now, staring at her shaven head and tear-filled eyes, I realized the truth. She had been living in fear, and I had failed to see it. The party around us went on as though nothing had happened. Music played. People laughed. Yet here, in the center of it all, my daughter clung to me, stripped of her innocence by the one who should have protected her most. I looked around at my family, my sister, my cousins, even the neighbors who had come over, and I saw their shocked faces, their silence. They all knew this wasn't right. Yet no one stepped forward. No one said a word. That silence was as cruel as the act itself. I stood there, torn between rage and despair, holding Emma close to my chest, her small body trembling against mine. I whispered to her, "You're safe, my love. Daddy's here." But inside, I made a promise I would never forget. This would not be ignored. This would not be swept under the rug like some harmless joke. From this moment forward, I was determined to fight for my daughter's dignity, no matter the cost. I couldn't stand another second in that crowded room. The music, the clinking glasses, the meaningless chatter, it all felt like a cruel backdrop to my daughter's humiliation. I took Emma by the hand, ignoring Clara's voice behind me, and carried her into the bathroom down the hall. I shut the door and locked it, leaning against the cold wood for a moment, just to steady my breath. My knees, at 58 years old, didn't make it easy for me to kneel, but I lowered myself anyway, just so I could meet my daughter at her level. Her little face was flushed, her eyes swollen from holding back tears. "Sweetheart," I whispered, brushing a strand of nothing across her scalp, my hand shaking as it hovered over the bare skin. "Tell Daddy the truth. What happened? I need you to be honest with me." Emma sniffled, her lip trembling. "Mommy woke me up yesterday morning. She said my hair was dirty, that I was a filthy girl. I felt my chest cave in. Just 2 days before, I had washed her hair myself while she played with her dolls in the tub. It had been clean, shining, soft like silk. Clara had lied, but Emma's little voice kept going, each word stabbing me deeper. She brought Daddy's razor, the one he uses for his beard. She said if I moved, she would hurt me." Emma's small fingers twisted the hem of her dress as she spoke, her whole body trembling. "I begged her to stop, Daddy. I cried and I screamed, but she just kept going until all my hair was on the floor. And when she finished, she said it was my fault. She said ugly girls cry too much and that I had to hide under this hat because nobody wanted to see me like that." I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clench them into fists against the tiled floor. My baby, my little girl, had been terrorized inside her own home by the woman who was supposed to love her most. And worse, I had been in the house when it happened. I had been sitting in the living room with the TV on, oblivious to her cries. My God, the shame of it, the guilt, hit me like a storm. "Was I home, Emma?" I asked in a whisper, though I dreaded the answer. She nodded, tears spilling now. "I screamed, Daddy, but you didn't come." Her words cut deeper than any knife could. I had failed her not just today, but yesterday, and for too many days before that. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight against me. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have been there. I should have stopped it." She buried her face into my shirt, her sobs muffled but endless. My chest ached with every sound. I stroked the back of her head gently, feeling the rough, uneven stubble under my palm, and swore to myself that no one would ever hurt her like this again. When we returned to the party, Emma clung to me like a shadow. I looked for Clara and found her laughing with my sister as though nothing had happened. My blood boiled. I walked over, my daughter's hand tight in mine. "Did you all know?" I demanded. My sister blinked at me in confusion. "Know what?" I ripped the cap from Emma's head, revealing her scalp for everyone to see. Gasps spread across the room. Emma immediately tried to hide behind me, her little hands covering her head. "Look at what Clara did to her. Look at her." "Well," Clara rolled her eyes, sipping her wine with that same arrogant smirk. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. Her hair was greasy and messy. Now it's neat. You all are acting like it's a crime." My sister shook her head, stunned. "Clara, this is too much. You could have trimmed it, not shaved her like a prisoner." Clara scoffed. "Kids need discipline. She was being difficult, and now she's learned her lesson." Her words burned into me. Lesson? What lesson had my daughter learned? To be afraid of her own mother, to believe she was ugly, to live in shame. I wanted to scream, to shake sense into Clara, but Emma's trembling grip on my hand kept me grounded. I couldn't fall apart. Not in front of her. Just then, our neighbor Thomas, who had been invited with his wife, stepped closer. His voice cut through the noise, calm but firm. "Excuse me, but I have 3 grandkids, and I'll tell you right now, no child deserves to be treated like this. This isn't discipline. It's cruelty." Clara turned to him with disdain. "No one asked for your opinion, sir." Thomas didn't back down. "When I see an adult humiliating a child, it becomes my business." The room went silent. Emma clung tighter to me, shaking whenever Clara spoke. Her fear was undeniable. I leaned down and whispered to her, "Do you want to get some water with me in the kitchen?" She nodded eagerly, but when I tried to guide her away, Clara stepped in front of us. "No, she's staying here. She needs to learn not to hide behind you every time something happens." Her voice was sharp, commanding, almost threatening. I looked into Emma's terrified eyes, and something inside me snapped. "Enough, Clara," I said, my voice low but cold. "She's leaving this room with me right now." Clara's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. "Over my dead body." But before she could continue, Thomas spoke again. "Let them go, ma'am. You're scaring the girl." At that moment, Daniel returned with another beer in his hand. "What's going on now?" he asked, exasperated. Clara put on her sweet tone. "Your father's causing drama again, just because I gave Emma a haircut." Daniel sighed, shaking his head. "Dad, please, it's just hair. Don't make this worse. Just hair." That cursed phrase again. I felt like the walls were closing in. I looked at Emma, her tears, her trembling body, the fear in her eyes, and I knew what I had to do. I straightened up, pulled her close, and announced to the room, "We're leaving." Clara's face twisted with rage. "You're not taking her anywhere. This is my daughter, and she's staying right here." I met her gaze with steel in my voice. "She's my daughter too, and I'll be damned if I let her stay in this house one more second under your control." Emma clung to me, her small voice barely audible. "Daddy, please don't leave me." I hugged her tighter. "Never, baby. I'll never leave you." The room erupted with voices, Clara shouting, relatives whispering, Daniel begging me to calm down. But I didn't hear any of it. All I heard was my daughter's heartbeat against mine, and the vow echoing in my chest. I would protect her, no matter what it cost me. The moment I said we were leaving, the room cracked open like a storm. Clara's voice was the first thunderclap, sharp, shrill, slicing through the laughter and chatter. "She is my daughter. You can't just take her away from me. You have no right." She planted herself in front of the doorway like a barricade, her wine glass trembling in her hand, though she tried to mask it with defiance. Emma's small fingers gripped mine tighter. I felt her knuckles pressing into my palm. She was shaking, but not just from fear, there was relief too, as if she thought, finally, Daddy is taking me out of here. That realization nearly crushed me. My little girl had been waiting for me to rescue her, and I had been too blind, too distracted, too forgiving of Clara's behavior to notice. "You've humiliated her. You've terrified her," I said, my voice low but iron in its weight. "And I will not stand by and let you do it again. Move out of the way, Clara." Ugh. Clara let out a bitter laugh, one that made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. "Oh, so now you're the hero. Now you care. Where was this heroic father every time I had to deal with her tantrums, her whining, her endless crying?" Her words lashed at me, each syllable dripping with venom. The worst part? They stung because there was some truth buried inside them. I had been absent too often. I had stayed late at work. I had told myself Clara was just strict when I saw Emma shrinking into silence. I had convinced myself things were fine because it was easier than facing the possibility that my wife was slowly crushing our daughter's spirit. Emma tugged on my sleeve, whispering with tears threatening to spill, "Daddy, can we please go home? Just us, please." Her voice was soft, but it cut through everything else in the room. I bent down, kissed her bare head, and whispered, "Yes, sweetheart. We're leaving. Right now." Relatives shifted uncomfortably. My sister, Margaret, stepped forward, her voice uneasy but firm. "Clara, just let them go. This doesn't feel right." Clara's head snapped toward her like a whip. "Stay out of it. This is my family, my child, none of your business." But then Thomas, our neighbor, spoke again. His deep voice rumbled with calm authority. "When you hurt a child, it becomes everyone's business." For the first time, I saw Clara falter. Her eyes flicked around the room, scanning the faces of people who had been silent too long. Some looked away, ashamed. Some looked at me with pity. But a few, like Thomas, stared at her with open disgust. Clara's cheeks flushed. She tried to recover, snapping at me. "You've always made me the villain. You undermine me in front of her, and then you wonder why she doesn't respect me." I wanted to argue, but Emma's sobs kept me focused. I pushed past Clara, my shoulder brushing hers. The wine sloshed from her glass, splattering onto the carpet like red bloodstains. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but I didn't stop. Emma was in my arms within seconds, her face buried into my chest, as if she wanted to disappear inside me. The night air outside hit us like a blessing, cool, quiet, untainted by the storm we'd left behind. I carried her to my truck, her little body pressed against mine. When I buckled her into the back seat, she looked up at me with wide, wet eyes. "Daddy, don't take me back to Mommy, please." My throat tightened. I kissed her forehead and promised, "I won't, baby, I won't." Clara came running out, barefoot now, her dress clinging to her legs in the night breeze. She screamed across the street, her voice echoing through the neighborhood. "If you leave, don't bother coming back. You'll regret this, I swear." I didn't respond. The engine roared to life, drowning her out. I drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. The ride home was quiet except for Emma's soft sniffling. Her small voice broke the silence halfway there. "Daddy, am I really ugly now?" My heart broke again. "No, sweetheart. You are the most beautiful girl in the world. Don't you ever believe otherwise." She nodded, but I could see she didn't fully believe me yet. That doubt, that tiny seed her mother had planted, would take time to heal. When we got home, I carried her inside. My house felt heavier somehow, like it had just inherited all of her pain. I laid her in my bed, tucking the blanket around her. She clutched my arm as if letting go meant losing her safety net. I stayed until her breathing steadied and her eyes closed, though even in sleep she muttered, "I'm sorry, Mommy. I'll be good." I wanted to break down, to cry like a child myself. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her scalp. Tiny red cuts dotted her skin, where the razor had pressed too hard. I brushed them gently with my fingers, each touch a silent vow. Never again. I won't let her suffer this again. My phone lit up. Clara's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again, Daniel this time. Then Clara again. Finally, I answered, my voice flat. What do you want? Clara's voice was sharp, on the edge of panic. Bring her back. You can't just keep her. She's my daughter too. I laughed bitterly. Now she's your daughter? After tonight? After calling her ugly and shaving her head like she was some kind of punishment doll? Clara spat back. You're overreacting. It's just hair. That cursed phrase again. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. She's 6 years old, Clara. 6. And you broke her. You made her beg for you to stop. You threatened her. That's not discipline. That's abuse. Her silence told me she knew it too, though she'd never admit it. Then she snapped. If you don't bring her back, I'll call the police. Good, I said. Call them. Tell them why your daughter is hiding under my blanket, whispering apologies in her sleep. Tell them why her scalp is cut and bleeding. Tell them about the threats you made. Go ahead. For the first time that night, her voice wavered. You wouldn't. I hung up without another word. Daniel called minutes later. His tone was weary, almost pleading. Dad, you can't just take her. Mom's losing it. She's pacing the house like a crazy person. Daniel, I said slowly, do you realize what your mother has done to your sister? She just overreacted. She thought it was for the best. For the best? My voice cracked like a whip. To humiliate her, to tell her she's ugly, to shave her head like a punishment. Daniel fell silent. Finally he muttered, It's just hair, Dad. You're blowing this out of proportion. My chest tightened. My own son, the boy I raised, was defending the indefensible. No, Daniel. What's out of proportion is a child trembling in fear of her own mother. What's out of proportion is her whispering apologies in her sleep for something she didn't do wrong. My voice lowered, thick with disappointment. And you standing by while your mother breaks your sister, that's what's truly unforgivable. Daniel didn't reply. The silence on the other end said more than words ever could. I hung up, my hand trembling. As the night deepened, Emma stirred in her sleep, whimpering. No, Mummy, please don't cut more. Please. I brushed her head gently, whispering, No one is going to touch you again, baby, not while I'm alive. By dawn, my decision was carved in stone. This wasn't just about one night, one haircut. This was about a pattern of cruelty, a slow erosion of my daughter's spirit that I had ignored for too long. No more. From now on, my life's mission was clear. Protect Emma at all costs. And as the first rays of sunlight touched her face, I swore it silently, but with all the force of my soul, I will fight for her, with everything I have, for as long as it takes. By the time the sun had fully risen, my phone had lit up with more than a dozen missed calls. Clara's name appeared again and again, her voice messages sharp and angry at first, then panicked, then dripping with venom. Daniel had tried too. His messages sounded calmer, but full of excuses. My sister Margaret had also called, her voice soft and trembling, begging me to stand firm, telling me I wasn't crazy, reminding me that she saw everything too. Emma was awake by then, sitting at the kitchen table in one of my old shirts that hung on her like a nightgown. She was stirring her cereal without eating, her little face pale but calmer than the night before. Daddy, she asked quietly, do I have to go back to Mommy's house? That question pierced me deeper than any blade could. No child should even have to wonder if her home was safe. I sat down across from her, placing my hand gently over hers. No, sweetheart, not until I know you're safe. Not until I know things will be different. Her lip trembled. But Mommy said she'll punish me worse if I tell anyone what happened. The words made my stomach twist. Emma, listen to me carefully. None of this is your fault. And no one, not even Mommy, has the right to hurt you or make you feel small. You hear me? She nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed clouded, as if she still didn't fully believe it. A knock rattled the front door just then. I froze, my heartbeat quickening. Emma looked up at me, fear flashing in her eyes. Is it Mommy? She whispered, her spoon clattering into her bowl. I walked to the window and peeked out. Sure enough, Clara and Daniel stood on the porch. Clara's hair was disheveled, her eyes wild, her hands gesturing sharply as she spoke to Daniel. He looked tired, defeated, like a boy caught between loyalty and shame. "Emma," I said gently, "go to my room. Close the door. Don't come out until I tell you." She obeyed instantly, her little feet padding down the hallway. I opened the door but did not step aside. "What do you want?" My voice was firm, the kind of tone I hadn't used in years. Clara pushed forward, her eyes blazing. "What do I want? I want my daughter back. You've stolen her from me, and if you don't return her right now, I swear." I raised my hand, cutting her off. "Enough, Clara. You don't get to bark orders after what you did. Do you even realize how broken she is? Do you realize she had nightmares all night, begging you not to hurt her again?" For a flicker of a moment, I thought I saw regret cross her face, but then it hardened into fury. "She's dramatic. You've always spoiled her. You coddle her until she thinks she's some kind of princess. She needs discipline." I stepped forward, my voice shaking with anger. "You shaved a 6-year-old's head, Clara. You told her she was ugly. That's not discipline, that's cruelty." Daniel spoke up finally, his voice soft but pleading. "Dad, please. You can't just keep her. People are going to start talking. This could get ugly. Let's just go back to normal." "Normal?" I turned on him, my disappointment sharper than steel. "Is this what you call normal? Watching your sister tremble in fear, listening to your mother humiliate her, and doing nothing?" Daniel's face fell. He rubbed the back of his neck, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't know it was that bad." "Yes, you did," I snapped. "You heard her crying yesterday. You heard her begging, and you sat in the living room and did nothing." The silence stretched. Clara's chest heaved with anger, but Daniel's expression shifted shame, dawning recognition, the painful realization of his own failure. But before I could say more, Clara pointed a finger at me like a dagger. "If you don't give her back, I'll call the police. I'll tell them you kidnapped her." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Kidnapped? She begged me to take her away. She asked me if she could live here forever. Do you think a judge would side with a woman who shaved her child's head and called her ugly?" Clara's face turned red, her lips quivering. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she seemed to realize the weight of what she'd done, not just the cruelty of it, but how indefensible it was. Before she could recover, Thomas appeared at the fence again. He must have been watching from his yard. "Everything all right here?" His deep voice carried across the grass. "Mind your own business," Clara snapped. But Thomas didn't flinch. He walked closer, resting his hands on the fence. "When I see a child in danger, it becomes my business. I saw Emma yesterday, Clara. I saw her shaking, terrified, hiding behind her father. And I heard what you said. Do you really want me to testify about that?" Clara's eyes widened, panic flickering across her face. She turned to Daniel, but he just stood there, looking down at his shoes. For once, he didn't defend her. I took a deep breath and straightened my shoulders. "Clara, this is the last time I'll say it. Emma is staying here. You can scream, you can threaten, you can even call the police. But from this moment forward, she's not going anywhere. She doesn't feel safe. And right now, that means she stays with me." Clara's hands shook. She muttered something under her breath and stormed off the porch, Daniel trailing behind her like a shadow. I closed the door and locked it, my heart still pounding. When I returned to my room, Emma was sitting on the bed, clutching one of my pillows. "Is Mommy gone?" she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart, she's gone." Her lip quivered. "Is she going to punish me later?" The question broke me in half. I sat down beside her, pulling her into my arms. "No, baby, she's not going to hurt you anymore, I promise." That night, as Emma slept curled against me, I made another decision. This wasn't just about family anymore. This wasn't just about arguments behind closed doors. This was abuse, and it needed to be treated as such. The next morning, I picked up the phone and called Elias Mason, an old friend of mine who had worked as a family lawyer for decades. When he answered, I didn't even waste time. Elias, it's me, I need your help. It's about Emma. By the time I finished telling him everything, there was a pause on the other end of the line. His voice, when it came, was firm. What you're describing isn't just neglect. It's abuse. You did the right thing, taking her away. I'll be over within the hour. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Elias arrived by mid-morning, his tall frame filling the doorway with the kind of presence that demanded respect. His grey hair was slicked back, his suit pressed sharp, and his briefcase clicked open the second he sat at my kitchen table. Emma peeked around the corner of the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her big eyes wary. Elias smiled softly at her, lowering his voice. Hello, young lady. My name's Elias. I'm here to help your dad make sure you're safe. Emma didn't say a word, but she nodded slowly, then retreated back into my room. My chest tightened watching her disappear. She was too young to understand legal battles, but old enough to feel the weight of them. Elias turned to me, his voice calm but steady. Tell me everything, from the beginning. So I did. I told him about the party, about the cap Emma clutched, about the moment I lifted it to see her bare scalp. I told him about Clara's smug laughter, about the threats, about Emma's terrified whisper, Daddy, Mommy says I'm ugly. My voice cracked more than once, but Elias never interrupted. He just wrote notes, his pen scratching the paper like a slow drumbeat. When I finished, Elias folded his hands. This isn't just a matter of custody. This is child abuse, plain and simple. We'll need photos of her head, the cuts, any evidence you can gather. And we'll need witnesses. Thomas, I said quickly. My neighbor, he saw it all. And my sister Margaret. She spoke up at the party. They both know what Clara did. Elias nodded. Good, their testimony will matter. But be prepared, Clara will fight this. She'll claim you're exaggerating, that Emma is dramatic, that you're trying to turn the child against her. I've seen this before. It'll get ugly. I swallowed hard. I don't care how ugly it gets. I just want Emma safe. Elias leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. Then you need to be steady. Judges don't respond well to anger, no matter how justified. You have to show calm control, and above all, unwavering commitment to Emma's well-being. Can you do that? I thought about the fire that had burned in me at the party, the urge to scream, to shake sense into Clara, to tear down anyone who stood in my way. I thought about how Emma had trembled against me, finding safety not in my rage, but in my steadiness. I nodded. Yes, for her I can. That night, after Elias left, I took the photos. It felt wrong, snapping pictures of my little girl's bare head while she sat on the edge of my bed, clutching her rabbit. She squirmed under the lens, whispering, Daddy, do I have to? I crouched down, lowering the camera. Sweetheart, I know it's uncomfortable, but this is so we can show people what Mommy did, so no one can pretend it didn't happen. Her eyes filled with tears. But what if Mommy gets madder? My chest ached. I pulled her into my arms, the camera forgotten for a moment. She won't touch you again. I promise. Daddy's not letting that happen. Slowly, Emma nodded. Okay, but only if you stay with me the whole time. So I did. I stayed, holding her hand as I took the photos, making sure she never felt alone. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and late-night phone calls with Elias. Each time the phone rang, Emma stiffened, afraid it might be Clara. I started silencing calls I didn't recognize, unwilling to let even a ringtone shake her fragile sense of peace. Clara, of course, didn't stay quiet. She left voicemails, some begging, some furious. One night, her voice cracked through the machine. She's my daughter too. You can't erase me from her life. You think you're a saint, but you're just turning her against me. I deleted the message before Emma could hear it. Margaret visited often, bringing warm meals and gentle hugs for Emma. My sister had always had a soft touch, and Emma clung to her like a second mother. One evening, as Margaret tucked Emma in, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. I knew Clara could be harsh. I saw glimpses. But I never imagined this. You're doing the right thing, brother. Don't doubt it. Still, doubt gnawed at me. Late at night, when the house was quiet and Emma finally slept soundly beside me, I would stare at the ceiling, haunted by memories of better days. Clara hadn't always been this way. I remembered when Emma was born, Clara holding her so tenderly, her voice soft as she whispered lullabies. Where had that woman gone? Was she ever real, or had I only seen what I wanted to see? Daniel's silence hurt me most. He hadn't called again after our last fight. I knew he was torn, but his choice to remain by Clara's side felt like betrayal. I had raised him to protect his siblings, to stand up when something was wrong. Now, watching him defend his mother's cruelty, I wondered if I had failed him somewhere along the way. A week later, Elias returned with papers. "We're filing for emergency custody," he said, sliding the documents across my table. "Given the evidence, the witnesses, and Emma's testimony, the court will likely grant it at least temporarily." Emma peeked from behind me, her wide eyes scanning the papers, though she couldn't read most of it. "Does this mean I don't have to go back?" she asked softly. I crouched down, brushing her cheek. "It means Daddy's going to make sure you're safe, and a judge will help us decide what's best." Her little shoulders eased for the first time in days. "Okay," she whispered, a small smile flickering across her lips. It was fragile, but it was a start. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Those 14 days felt like walking a tightrope over fire. Clara called again and again. Sometimes she screamed, sometimes she cried. Sometimes she promised to change, swore she'd never hurt Emma again. But then, in the same breath, she'd accuse me of poisoning Emma, of brainwashing her. Each time, I wanted to answer with rage. But I remembered Elias's words. Calm, control, commitment. So I let the calls go unanswered, focusing instead on Emma's healing. We built small rituals, morning pancakes with too much syrup, evening walks where she collected leaves and told me which ones looked like hearts. Bedtime stories where I read slowly, letting her drift into sleep with her head on my chest. Each little routine was like a brick, building a wall of safety around her. But still, I saw the cracks. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night, her tiny body trembling with nightmares. Sometimes she flinched when she heard the phone ring, expecting her mother's voice. Each time I held her tighter, whispering, "You're safe. Daddy's here. No one can touch you." And each time I made myself another vow. When the hearing came, I would stand unshakable. For Emma, for her future, for the promise I made the night I carried her out of that party. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and cold air. The walls were high, intimidating, meant to remind everyone that the truth carried weight here. I held Emma's hand as we walked through the heavy doors, her little steps echoing against the tiled floor. She wore a blue dress Margaret had bought her, her bare scalp covered with a soft knitted hat. She clung to my arm, her grip so tight it almost hurt, but I didn't dare let go. Elias met us in the hallway, his briefcase in hand, his expression steady. "Remember," he whispered to me, "stay calm, speak only when spoken to. And above all, keep the focus on Emma's well-being. That's what matters most." I nodded, though my heart thundered in my chest. Across the hall, Clara stood with her lawyer, her arms crossed, her lips pursed. She looked polished, as though she had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Daniel was beside her, his hands shoved into his pockets, his eyes flicking nervously toward me and then away. When Emma spotted her mother, she froze, her small body trembling. I bent down quickly, whispering in her ear, "Look at me, baby, not at her. I'm right here." The judge entered shortly after, a stern woman with sharp eyes and a voice that carried authority. "This court is now in session," she announced. The air shifted, heavy and silent. Elias began with precision, laying out the facts. Emma's shaved head, the photographs of her cuts, the testimony of witnesses. Each piece landed like a stone in still water, rippling across the room. Clara's lawyer objected often, dismissing it as exaggeration, claiming Clara had acted in the best interest of hygiene and discipline. When Clara was called to speak, She took the stand with a practiced calm. "I never meant to harm Emma," she said, her voice soft, almost pitiful. "She refused to bathe, refused to let me comb her hair. It was constantly tangled, dirty. I thought cutting it short would be best. Maybe I was wrong to shave it, but I only wanted her to be clean and presentable." Her lawyer nodded approvingly, but I saw through the performance. The crocodile tears, the carefully chosen words, they painted a picture of a mother who had simply made a mistake. But I knew the truth. Emma knew the truth. Elias stood. "Mrs. Hayes, did you call your daughter ugly after shaving her head?" Clara's jaw tightened. I might have said something in frustration. Did you threaten to hurt her if she moved?" Her eyes flicked nervously toward Daniel before snapping back to Elias. "I never threatened her. That's a lie." Elias's voice didn't rise, but it sharpened like a blade. "And yet, your neighbor heard you. Your sister-in-law heard you, and Emma herself told her father you did. Are they all lying, Mrs. Hayes?" Clara's composure faltered, her cheeks flushing. "Children exaggerate. Neighbors gossip. My husband has always wanted to paint me as a villain." The judge's eyes narrowed. The tension in the room thickened. Then Thomas was called. He stepped forward, his voice steady, his posture unshaken. "I was there the night of the party. I saw Emma clinging to her father, trembling. I heard Clara laugh while the child cried. I heard Clara call her ugly. That's not discipline. That's cruelty." Clara's lawyer tried to rattle him with questions, but Thomas didn't budge. His words were simple, honest, impossible to twist. Next came Margaret. She trembled slightly at first, but when she looked at Emma sitting beside me, her voice grew strong. "I've known Clara for years. I've seen her be harsh, controlling, but that night I saw something different. I saw a little girl stripped of her dignity, and I saw my brother finally step in to protect her. He's not exaggerating. He's telling the truth." Clara glared at my sister, her face tight with fury. But it was Emma's turn next, and nothing could have prepared me for it. The judge spoke gently. "Emma, would you like to tell me what happened?" Emma looked at me, her eyes wide, pleading. I squeezed her hand, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. Just tell the truth. I'm right here." With trembling lips, Emma spoke. "Mommy woke me up. She said my hair was dirty. She took Daddy's razor and said if I moved, she'd hurt me. I cried, but she didn't stop. She shaved all my hair and told me I was ugly. She told me I had to wear a hat so people wouldn't laugh at me." The courtroom was silent, every word landing heavy in the air. Emma's voice cracked as tears welled in her eyes. "I don't want to live with Mommy. I'm scared she'll do it again." I swallowed hard, fighting back tears of my own. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable but softened. "Thank you, Emma. That was very brave." Clara's lawyer stood, his tone sharp. "Emma, do you think maybe you misunderstood? That Mommy was just trying to help you stay clean?" Emma shook her head firmly, surprising me with her sudden strength. "No. She said I was ugly. She said no one would love me if I cried. That's not helping." The lawyer hesitated, then sat down, defeated. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly, my hands gripping the edge of the stand to steady myself. My voice was low, but every word came from the deepest part of me. I am 58 years old. I have raised children long enough to know that they need guidance. Yes, but they also need love. What Clara did to Emma wasn't guidance. It wasn't love. It was humiliation. It was abuse. My daughter is 6 years old, and she already believes she is ugly because of the words her own mother used. That's not something a child should ever carry. "Oh," I glanced at Emma, her small frame dwarfed by the courtroom bench. "She clung to me that night as though her life depended on it. And maybe it did. I failed her once by not seeing the signs earlier. I will not fail her again. If protecting my daughter cost me everything else, my marriage, my comfort, even my relationship with my son, then so be it. I choose her. I will always choose her." The courtroom was silent when I finished. Clara stared at me with venom, but her face no longer carried the same confidence. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, shame flickering across his expression. The judge cleared her throat, her voice steady. "I've heard enough. This court rules in favor of granting temporary full custody to Mr. Hayes. Mrs. Hayes will have supervised visitation until further evaluation. This court will not tolerate actions that strip a child of her dignity. Case adjourned." The gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder, final and irreversible. Emma turned to me instantly, her arms wrapping around my neck. "Daddy, does this mean I don't have to go back?" she whispered. I held her tight, my voice breaking as I whispered back, "Yes, baby, you're safe now. You're staying with me." For the first time in weeks, I felt her body relax against mine, the weight of fear lifting just a little. And in that moment, I knew that no matter how long the road ahead, we had taken the first true step toward healing. Looking back now, I realized that night at the party was more than just a turning point, it was a wake-up call. At 58 years old, I thought I understood what it meant to be a father. I thought showing up, working hard, and providing for my family was enough. But that night taught me something deeper. Fatherhood isn't just about being present. It's about protecting, listening, and choosing your child every single time, even when it costs you everything else. Emma is healing. Her laughter is slowly returning, little by little, like sunlight creeping through a storm cloud. She still has nights where she wakes up crying, still has moments where she hides under her blanket. But she also has mornings where she sings while pouring too much syrup on her pancakes, afternoons where she picks wildflowers on our walks, evenings where she curls up beside me with her favorite book. Every one of those small moments feels like a victory. And as for me, I carry both the guilt of not acting sooner and the pride of finally standing up when it mattered most. If there's one thing I hope anyone listening takes away from my story, it's this: never underestimate the weight of your words or the silence of your absence. Children may look small, fragile, but their hearts remember everything. They remember when you didn't come. They remember when you finally did. If you are a parent or a grandparent or someone who loves a child, I beg you pay attention, protect them fiercely, but love them even more fiercely. And if you see cruelty, even within your own walls, don't dismiss it. Don't excuse it. Stand up, because one moment of courage can change the entire course of a child's life. Emma changed me. She reminded me that love isn't passive, it's active, demanding, and sometimes painful. But it's also the most important choice we will ever make. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of the power of love and protection, please support this channel. Your support helps us share more stories, stories that heal, stories that remind us what truly matters. Because in the end, family is not about who shares your blood. It's about who stands beside you when the storm comes.